Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 196. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, uh, Daniel from the Inscriber, Jacob from Jab Hook, Gail from Community Digital News, and Nauta from Nauta TV. What's going on, ladies and gents?
Doing well, man.
Yep. Good evening.
Indeed. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report live YouTube show, podcast, and blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to. p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the link. Check the Rather page. You can find links to the pages and channels on G+, YouTube, Tumblr, Twitter, as well as links to where to listen to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Player FM over in the UK, as well as Mixcloud. Let's get the show started. I'm not going to recap too many fights. Going to focus on the doubleheader that went down. Well, on the two main fights that went down at Barclays this past weekend on Showtime. Starting with the main event, Errol Spence Jr. Making the first defense of his IBF welterweight title, defending it against former junior welterweight and welterweight titleist Lamont Peterson. Spence had his way, dominated for the most part. Peterson didn't. Peterson's corner basically stopped the fight after the seventh round. Since it's been a while since you've been on the show here, now I'm gonna go to you first. Your assessment of the fight. For me, I'll say briefly, the main criticism by some of Spence was that he tends to be one-dimensional, that he's often labeled as a pressure fighter who only comes forward. I look at this fight and I saw kind of peeling of the layers of Spence. He showed skill, he shows patience, excellent timing. In short, he's not just a one-dimensional guy. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I wouldn't say he's a one-dimensional guy. I mean, in a way, and I said this just after the fight too. He kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of Golovkin as Golovkin was kind of rising to prominence in the U.S. When he kind of first broke out, because of the fact that there's a little bit more subtlety there than a lot of people might give credit for, whether they're haters or whatever their issue with the guy is. But they tend to approach the sport in an aggressive manner. Spence is a physical fighter first and foremost. He's looking to go out there and do damage to you. What the manner in which he does it is kind of up to you. Depending on what you bring to the table is how he's gonna decide to go about doing that damage to you. Whether he's gonna be completely pressing you constantly 100% on the front foot, or whether he might like sit back and maybe try to catch and counter a little bit. But ultimately he's putting everything on every shot. He's a lead-fisted fighter, and he's throwing bombs at you pretty much nonstop. He's putting a lot of heat on every shot that he throws. I do think that Peterson, I thought going into the fight that Peterson was a little bit more technically skilled on the inside than Spence was. And I thought he kind of showed that in the first probably like round and a half with regards to the way he was able to kind of sharpshoot Spence at times, kind of catch him and then kind of pivot around him and everything. But ultimately that style was just going to be bad news for Peterson going into it, simply because of the fact that Spence was just so much stronger than him, that trying to have that kind of inside fighting physical style of Peterson's is going to work against the guy that's stronger than you, and not only stronger than you, but also hits harder than you. And so just Spence completely physically overwhelmed Peterson, and it got to the point where Peterson kind of forgot some of the extra movement that he was doing for the first round and a half, 2 rounds, and he became pretty much a sitting duck. It almost kind of started to remind me of when Pacquiao fought Clottey, where he was just kind of high guarding, kind of pressing, but he wasn't doing the earlier actions that allowed him to set up those punches. He was just a punching bag at that point. And so he just got bludgeoned down. And I mean, I guess Peterson's team's game plan was to try and take Spence into the deep rounds and see if they could maybe drown him. But he just took way too much damage in the early goings for that to even be a possibility. So, I mean, Spence took care of business. He did what I expected of him at the very least. I've thought pretty highly of him, at least insofar as his offensive talent. And at this point, really, to me, it's going to take a very good, bordering on great fighter to beat Spence. I think either a guy with a ton of power that can, give him something to think about in return, or a guy with just supreme skill level and technical ability that can kind of take away some of Spence's best tools and give him some puzzles to try to figure out. Other than that, he's just going to keep on steamrolling everybody that he fights.
I'll go to you, Gail. Your assessment of what now? Your thoughts on the other facets that you saw from Spence's game and how it was ultimately too much for Peterson. I mean, you have to give Peterson credit. He's tough, he's durable, he's a pro's pro, if you will. But to this point, he had some success, maybe the first round and a half, 2 rounds. But once you can see Spence, he was using his brain in there. The technical, and when he started using his brain, the technical skills, they started to show, and the shot started to flow in a manner that I think that a lot of people have not seen before. I mean, again, it's the peeling of the layers. I've heard talk from folks who've seen Spence spar say that he can really box, and we begin to see it on full display Saturday night.
Absolutely right. To follow up with what's been said already, I won't repeat a lot of the compliments. Absolutely spot on. He's starting to have a very diversified toolkit to use, and we saw a lot of it. Anybody who's still thinking that Errol Spence is one-dimensional hasn't seen him, hasn't seen the progression. It was clear last weekend. You forget about the solid foundation he's got as an amateur boxer and an Olympian. And those skills are still underlying the professional game that he's now bringing with the power, with the diversification of shots. An amateur fighter, there's really no percentage for them going to the body. They could just, tap, 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 and score points. To see Spence going to the body the way he did and having that for his future opponents to have to worry about, fantastic. I mean, that was almost the best thing he could have done by far. Peterson is as game as they come. A guy like that sometimes is his own worst enemy, because when the other skills start declining, the will to get in there and mix it up and just tough it out never goes away with a guy like that. I want to stop for a second and give enormous credit to Barry Hunter for stopping it when he did, doing it the way he did with compassion for Peterson. He didn't rob him of his dignity. He gave him every opportunity. But that's a very deep relationship for everybody that knows their backstory. And they're far more than trainer and fighter, as he said. He was very honest about it. And that's exactly how every trainer should work with their fighters. They've got a long life, hopefully a happy, healthy one outside the ring, long after they stop fighting. And you've got to look to that. But Peterson's, his skills are to the point where he just didn't have enough to offer, even when he could hit Spence. And he did nail him several times with really solid right hands. Spence walked right through them. So unless you're an absolute beast of an opponent or a technical genius, I think you're going to have a very hard time finding any way to beat the new look Errol Spence. And let's also remember, the guy is rusty. He's only had 2 fights in 18 months? That's not enough. He needs to keep busier. And the more he gets busy in the ring and rolls up rounds without 8 and 9 month layoffs, he's going to be even more dangerous. It's a very exciting thing for us as fans to see happening.
I see Scorsese has joined us. I'll get him in this discussion, and then you can follow up. Jacob and Daniel, we're recapping Errol Spence's stoppage over Lamont Peterson. Your thoughts on what went down and To those who, as I've said before, to those who want to label Spence a one-dimensional guy or just a pressure fighter, I think he showed a little bit more Saturday night, Scorsese.
Yeah, he just ran him over to me. He started playing with him. You know, started toying with him later in the fight, slipping jabs off to the side and different things like that. Just and really landing hard shots. Lamont Peterson's still a solid fighter to me. Does a lot of things right, but you know, you get in there with Earl Spence. I don't know, man. You could do everything right and still get just rolled over because he's a man amongst boys at that weight class, and you know, and that's funny to say because it's not like all of them dudes moved up in weight, or a lot of them are natural welterweights, and he's still showing. You know, I'm the alpha up in this joint, so I'm impressed. I love his trainer. I love the way they just keep the pressure on, and they don't want to do anything else. They like he's people like show me you can box, and I'm like no thank you. I don't want to see him box. If this is what he can do to all of them, that tells you just what he is. That tells you how good he is. He doesn't have to be like water and form into something else and adjust. He could just be Earl Spence and make you be the person that either needs to adjust or gonna get beat down. And even if you do adjust, you still might get beat down, and that's what prime young boxing is about. Like I said a few months back, or maybe last year, boxing is getting younger and more brutal, and he's the epitome of that. And I'm intrigued. I think what he done to Peterson is going to make other people just realize even more. They already realized it, but like Peterson beat the hell out of Danny Garcia. Then you saw Errol Spence just beat the hell. No, this ain't a good thing. I forget when people talking about you can't use triangle theories. This is one triangle you can theorize about. All right, feel free to do it because this man ain't playing games. And one of my favorite fighters to watch these days. Hope he can stay active like Gail said.
Daniel and Jacob, your thoughts?
I love the fact that Spence didn't rush this. He was methodical in his approach. Every punch had a meaning to it. And then just in the way he stepped up, even when Peterson was trying to counter, because Peterson's game plan obviously was probably to get inside on Spence and try to do what Spence was starting to do to him from round one. Go to the body, start to break it down, and then try to take him to deep waters when he's tired. Spence beat him to the punch in more ways than one. And like I said, I'm not going to take anything away from Lamont Peterson. He came in great shape. He countered Spence really well. If there's a flaw you want to point to Spence's game, is the fact that he doesn't really move his head still a lot. But he was able to land punches, but Spence just flew by those punches and landed even better shots. And once we have to give credit to Barry Hunter. We've seen over the past couple of years a lot of corners be a little bit too brave and let their fighters go out when they were clearly done. Barry Hunter didn't do that. Now, obviously, he said in many ways he views Lamont Peterson more as his son than just his fighter. But it shows that trainers, you need to do this. Like, you need to honestly look at your fighter, and sometimes you have to save him from himself. Because if he didn't, Peterson would have just kept on going. And the beating would have been more pronounced. You can't really tell much because obviously Lamont Peterson wasn't a bloody mess, but half his face was starting to swell from the round up. If he would have lasted probably one more round, both his eyes would have been swollen shut. So I can't take anything from it. I know some people want to saying, oh, he only fought somebody that just recently moved up to welterweight. Like it was mentioned here. Lamont Peterson gave Danny Garcia a pretty good beating too. And that's what Spence did to him. That speaks to what the division is looking at. And the kid is young too. And luckily, he's going to have a fight soon. Granted, it's a mandatory, but now they're going to keep him active.
Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be a little bit more competitive than it ended up being. I do think that I had said in a previous show, I thought the Lamont Peterson I saw, I think could beat Keith Thurman. But I mean, I don't know if we're going to ever see that fight now that, he has to kind of rethink whether he wants to continue. But I credit to Spence. He did what he had to do. He was aggressive. He had a lot of volume, punching, was hitting to the head and the body, knocked him down even, and just really did what he had to do. I do, as much credit as the corner, I'll give him for stepping in and a rarity when you have something like a relationship like they have it's almost like a father-son relationship. A lot of those times, those things don't go that way. It goes the opposite way. Like a father might not protect the son as much. They kind of like they'll like send them out there like thinking like they'll be able to do more. And that we've seen times in the past where that's become like a dangerous combination. It's kind of like you need to have that outside thing. Somebody that's not as connected and that's looking out for your well-being. And it's not to say that these father figures or fathers want to see their fighter get hurt. It just, I think they're sometimes too close to it. But for the credit, I'll give the corner on that. I do think that the criticism I'll give is that I do think that the game plan that they set up for Spence, or Peterson for Spence, was not the right game plan. It seemed like Lamont wasn't throwing enough punches early on. He was using that high guard and just kind of, maybe thinking that I'll absorb these and take them to later rounds and start to do my work. But again, that's all great, but you have to move when you're doing like he did against Garcia, where he was basically avoiding punches. If you give the opportunity to Spence to be able to land, or an opportunity to land punches, even if some of them are hitting your gloves, but then he gets through with his combinations on a couple of the tail end ones. I don't think that's a really bad strategy. I would have liked to see Lamont kind of counter more, because I do think Spence, for as good as I think he is, I do think that he is susceptible to a counter. He does leave himself open sometimes. And Lamont did land some good shots, but I mean, Spence to me isn't like someone you're going to knock out with a single shot. He's got a decent chin, but some well-timed, well-placed shots in a cumulative fashion could have maybe told a different story to the fight. But that wasn't the game plan that they used, and it ended up being their eventual downfall, where Peterson just couldn't survive that onslaught that Spence was putting on him. So I mean, overall, good fight. I still, I hope Peterson doesn't hang him up, because I still think that he has the skills to compete, and maybe with a different game plan, he can do some things a little bit differently in there. But we'll see. See what he feels like. It's always difficult after a fight. You're going through so many different things that it's not a good question to ask, because they might feel one way one day and then a totally different way another day. Once they're healed and they got some moment to think about it. So, but hats off to Spence, and I'm glad that he called it like it was against Thurman. I think he called him not one time but sometime Thurman, which I really liked. So,
I've been saying this since the end of the fight, and really I've been thinking it even before the fight. I know this is only his first defense, but based on what I've seen, and should he keep improving, I think right now, Errol Spence is the best welterweight in the world. Garcia, he's too stiff-legged. He will be right there for Thurman. He will be right there for Spence all day. Porter comes forward and he's roughhouse. Based on what we've seen Saturday night, Spence has just enough movement and plenty enough skill to thwart his attack. Thurman, um, look, uh, Spence showed in that fight he can catch and shoot. And we know that Thurman won, though awkward, he tends to leap and throw these Hayukin punches. If he does that against Spence, who's tight and disciplined, he's going to get caught. And we know how susceptible Thurman is to the inside. He's not a great inside fighter, and we know he's weak up the gut. And to your notion of one time, sometime, Jacob, Thurman, as he's faced higher level of competition, he's not hurting these. He's hurting these dudes, but he's not taking these dudes out. He's struggling with them. And based on what I've seen, if Spence can take the power and the strength of a very strong Kell Brook at 147, he can do it to Spence at 147. So, and we don't know about Bud. Look, on paper, Bud is elite. He's still number one pound for pound in my book, but based on what I've seen of Spence is going to give this dude hell. And I could see Spence beating someone even as good / great as Bud, because he will pose problems for him too. Southpaw style, the strength, him being a fellow southpaw, and if he's able to cut the ring off on Bud and get inside, he's in trouble. I'm going to open it up for everybody here. Anybody who wants to jump in, please respond. Do you think Errol Spence is the top dog at 147 pounds?
Yes, until we see what Terrence Crawford has to offer at 147. But he's an unproven quantity right now.
You was about to say something, Nelson?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Spence is I wouldn't necessarily rate him number one in terms of achievement, accomplishment. You know, I'd put Thurman up there still. But in terms of
I don't care about that. I care about
in terms of when they get into the ring, who's winning, I have Spence over everybody at 147, and that will include Crawford, regardless of kind of what he does against Jeff Horn.
Daniel Scorsese, Jacob.
Yeah, I can pretty much agree to that. Before I wasn't to well, I think even before the Horn fight, I would have told you it would have been Pacquiao by default. But after the Horn fight, and especially seeing how Spence handled both Brook and now Peterson, yeah. Among the current crowd right now, yeah.
He's taken fighters who are normally world-class, durable, skilled opponents and just destroying them.
He outbodied the body snatcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, miss me with the accomplishment thing. Look, Thurman has 2 belts, yes. But when he's faced similar competition over the last 2 years, he's been struggling. Right. He's been winning, but he's been struggling.
Right. I mean, you can just look at the Bundu fight.
He's bodying dudes.
Yeah.
He's bodying dudes.
I don't hear nobody saying Errol the part-time truth or nothing like that.
No, they're not.
Nope.
It's a reason behind, because like you said, they both have about 3 to 4 good welterweight fights. They have 2 above average or better than good type fights. And Thurman just got outperformed in each one of them. And Spence doesn't stop. But no, man. Now look, the belt's cool. Hey, they got, but it just is what it is. You're getting outperformed versus the same level fighter. They need to find a lineal champion up there. And I think when they do try to make their lineal champion, it's going to be one man and one man only for as long as I told them. The best thing they can wish for is that man get on the scale during his mandatory matchup and then say 148.5. That's all they can hope for. That's all the hope they got.
Pretty much. Your thoughts, Jacob?
I actually think that Spence's 2 big wins are better than Thurman's 2 big wins. Thurman has the Porter Garcia, but to me, Brook, I rated Brook very high. I know he's not in the welterweight anymore and he's moved up, but I thought he was a very good fighter. And Lamont, I think those are two better wins, in my opinion, than Thurman. So as far as the record goes, but yeah, I mean, I agree with everybody. I think I'd take Spence over everybody right now. The Crawford one is interesting. If I had to do it right now, because Crawford is moving up in weight, and haven't seen him, yet. As skilled as he is, I have to immediately give that edge to Spence. But we'll see how Crawford does. I mean, I don't think even a fight against Horn is going to tell me much, because I don't rate Horn that high. I think I need to see him against a little bit better competition than a Horn, and see how he handles that. But Spence is a big welterweight to me, and he is definitely the top dog.
Okay, I'm just reading some stuff in the chat. Shout out to K. Izzo, aka Miss Mrs. Fox on Twitter. Sean, the Goonies 123, having a conversation here in the chat, reading some of the comments.
Yeah. I want to say one final thing, because Scorsese mentioned lineal championship. There's a reason why the last lineal champion of welterweight, which was Floyd Mayweather, wanted everyone to fight Errol Spence. Real recognized Real in that front.
Yeah, I mean, look. Well, and the thing about that is, I mean, you could say that he didn't want to fight him. So like he was using Spence as like, a gatekeeper for him, which is, kind of a weird thing, but
I mean, let's face it. Let's be real about this. The reason he said that, because he's seen it firsthand, based on what Spence done to him in the gym, sparring. And based on people in the know, Spence gave Floyd a heck of a time in the gym. And we know what kind of fighter Floyd Mayweather is, ATG fighter. That lets you know right there that Spence is what he is. He is the truth. And we know how much.
Here's the magic ingredient. After both of his last fights, which were tremendous performances, he said, I still got a lot to learn. Really? That should scare the hell out of everybody. He isn't walking around thinking he's got all the answers and all the skills already. He is still working on his craft. That's exactly the attitude a dominant champion has to have, that they can always improve. That's a dangerous guy.
I just want to point out real quick.
Let me ask a question in the chat. The thing is, Miss Fox, about Bundu, you can say he may be old or whatever, but that old Bundu, you saw how much he gave, how many problems he gave Thurman. Spence destroyed him. And the reason you can say, you can't. What did she say? Essentially that you can't really judge. You really can't say Spence is yet the best, because none of the top fighters will fight him. Well, there's a reason they don't want to fight him, because they know they will be in trouble if they were to face him in the ring.
Brooke fight him?
If they outside of Brooke, but that gives a lot of credit to Brooke. If they really thought they could stand a chance in the ring with him, they would call him out, no question. A sign that they feel that they could lose, or that they would lose, you don't hear them mention their names. What have I said before? We all know how Thurman and Spence's boogeyman. Yeah, we saw it in the press conference yesterday, and we will talk about that shortly. Garcia, Angel Garcia, he talks about everybody and their mama. The dude who he doesn't mention, Errol Spence. Even Sean Porter. When you ask him about Errol Spence, cat got your tongue. Crawford is talking about him. That's a shout out to him. I give him credit for it, but again, based on what I'm seeing from him, as great as Crawford is, it's going to be a hell of a fight, but it's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a tough fight for Bud. He ain't bowling that dude over. I tell you that. And if he doesn't beat him from the outside, he's really in trouble. He's really in trouble.
But that's one thing that makes the match so interesting. Bud has the tools to actually attempt to outbox Spence. in a way where he can use the distance, he can use the reach, and he's ambidextrous. If he needs to, he'll switch to southpaw to counter Spence.
But and also, I mean, Spence and Crawford, like kind of the same thing that you said about Angel Garcia. I mean, I could probably make the same remarks about Bob Arum, because I'm sure that if and when Crawford has a belt at 147, all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh, Crawford would beat Spence easily. But we're not going to make that fight right now because we got to do this and we got to do that. And, you know, he's not a big enough name. And, you know, all that stuff is going to come out the side of his mouth right after he pronounced Crawford being better than him in the first place.
If Crawford knows what's good for him, he recognizes he on the safe side of the street, and he remains there. Does everything he can to get a Saddam Ali fight at 54 or some shit. Buy some time, and it'll be okay. Spence ain't gonna be able to make that way forever. That's how I look at it. You know, do anything, but if you fight him, man, look, you go on these IG videos all you want, talking about name him and I'll fight him. All right, look. I like a fighter that's got some heart and things like that, but just for his own good, that ain't the fight for him. I ain't holding nobody back though. For all of that good, avoid him if you can.
I like though the fact that Crawford is willing to challenge himself for greatness, you know, by chasing someone like Spence versus just I'll just play it safe and collect belts and, you know, not fight, you know, top competition. He believes in himself, so, you know, I like that part.
There's that. There's obviously the regional rivalry. Obviously, it's in Nebraska versus Texas. So there's a lot going on there. And at the end of the day, I think Bud understands that when it comes to welterweights, we know you can match up with Spence is going to be the cream of the crop, because obviously now we're looking at the state of it right now. Like I said, Peterson, he's likely considering retirement. You know, Danny Garcia is not going to fight him. Sean Porter's tricky to me. I think he might fight him just out of necessity. Like he just needs to stay active, and that's the only option they give him.
Didn't he say he wanted to get the winner of the fight?
Yeah, he did.
The pre-show?
He did. Like I said, but that's credit to Sean Porter. Sean Porter has one thing that is constant about him. He wants to be active. He wants to be in the ring constantly. He doesn't like layoffs. So I give him props for that. But everybody else, I'm looking at you, Keith Thurman. Yeah, you need to step up. You have 2 belts, but right now you're just looking like a placeholder.
One of the comments is they're judging this off of just the eye test, not on what he has done, what he has accomplished. Your response, folks.
Judging who on the eye test? Spence on the eye test?
I mean, it's on the eye test of who he's accomplishing it against. So I
wish Thurman eye test.
You know, let's compare Peterson and Garcia. Peterson really beat the crap out of Garcia, regardless of whether he didn't get the decision. Whether or not he didn't get the decision. So if you want to compare win versus win, knocking the crap out of Peterson and making it his corner, call it a day, and possibly even retire, from the sport entirely, that's a better win all the way around, 360, as compared to winning a close hard fought decision over Danny Garcia.
Not to mention, sorry, go.
Well, it's real easy too to discount Peterson. But you've got to look at the body of the man's work. Just because Spence made him look bad doesn't mean he was a bad opponent. It meant Spence overwhelmed a good fighter who simply had no answers for anything Spence did to him. He landed some hard shots on Errol that he walked right through. I'm not sure that most people even saw them, really.
Those uppercuts?
Those uppercuts and those headshots. I mean, Peterson really should have tried to go to the body on Spence, but the problem is he would have opened himself up for more of an assault than he got. So he simply couldn't do it. And he did fire off great shots. It meant nothing. Peterson's a formidable opponent. Absolutely right. He beat Garcia. There wasn't even a question about that in my mind. So that's an impressive win. Think about how Spence took Brook apart. Although Golovkin beat Brook stood toe-to-toe with him for, several moments of that fight. And anyone watching Brook, win his belt, that was an amazing performance. So I'm not sure what people are thinking when they discount Spence's path to this point. It's time to get him and Thurman in the ring, but it isn't going to happen right away, unfortunately. And legitimately, Thurman's been off so long, he needs a couple of tune-up fights. So I'm not sure, as inactive as he's been the last few years under the PBC model, that he's going to even get in 2 fights this year. We'll see.
Let me answer this question before I go to Jacob. A comment about Porter and how he could muscle him and brawl him. Number one, Porter.
I don't know if he can.
He's a bit of a bully in that regard. He's always been stronger and more physical than just about everybody he's fought. Not against this dude.
Well, he wasn't against Brook, and when Brook and Spence fought each other, I mean, they looked like they were pretty much equal strength to me.
He barely did it against Granados.
This guy can be just as physical as he can. He can fight Porter's own game and beat him. He doesn't even have to do that with his skill set, and
he's not as overtly physical as Porter. But if he gets taken there, he can do it.
Yeah, and he's just as physically strong. And if Broner can hurt Porter late, if Brook can shake Porter early, if Thurman can get Porter's attention with shots, what makes you think that Errol Spence couldn't at 147 pounds?
And Granados had Porter hanging on for dear life at the end of their fight.
Yep. Now, granted, we have to admit, Porter had a broken hand, but still, he couldn't out-bully Granados even before then.
What are you talking about, Sean? He put him down in the last round.
Yep. I think part of the reason why you're seeing this eye test argument is, unfortunately, a little bit of the fault of the fact that the welterweight division has been dominated by 2 people for almost a decade in Floyd and Manny.
Well, and the thing is, it was dominated by 2 people
no offense, Sean, in the chat. He put him down in the last round and did so with a single shot. What does that tell you?
When it was dominated by 2 people that came up from smaller weights. Spence is not some former featherweight, super featherweight, whatever.
No,
he is a physical welterweight. He is going in there looking to break bones. He's not looking to out-slick you or out-defense you or out-volume you. He's looking to just beat you down, just destroy you.
Let's
slice
get
you
score
in
saved.
half.
Let's get score saved and Jacob in this. Final thoughts before we move on to the other fight.
My question is, I'm not sure who said the eye test, but how else do you judge fighters? It's through the eyes. I mean, it's what you see.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, like, if a guy is looking amazing against lower-level opposition, you can be like, oh, well, by the eye test, they look amazing, but who are they fighting, But the thing is, Spence is still fighting world-class level guys.
But that's a combination, so that's not just an eye test. So you take that in my opinion, a real person that analyzes looks at that level of competition. If Barry Bonds gets up and hits a home run off a fucking little leaguer, okay, that's not the same thing as him, doing it against a high level major leaguer. So, you take that into consideration, but everything is going to be the eye test. It's the things that you see, the things that they do that you see that they do, or the things that you see that they don't do, or their vulnerabilities that tell you what you think about this fighter. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the Porter fight is an interesting fight. It's, if he's willing to fight him, it's the most interesting fight that can be made, because Thurman doesn't seem like he wants to fight him. And again, I would like Crawford to get a few fights at 147, because the comment that was made earlier that Spence is like the natural big welterweight. That's absolutely true, and we don't know that Crawford. We don't know yet like what he's going to look like at that weight. So I mean, to me, eye test, he's passing the eye test.
Yeah, I think Sean he's clarifying in terms of accomplishments, but still, when he stepped up in competition in his last two fights, look at what he's done. Look at what he's done. Finish this off score, say
Yeah, I mean, accomplishments don't win fucking fights. Nobody gets you on the ropes and think about, hey, you won 2 titles, you won 3 titles. That don't happen. If this was the case, Bernard Hopkins would never lost to Jermaine Taylor because he was way more accomplished than several other examples. Look, Keith Thurman has had the opportunity to fight for a Danny Garcia, a fake welterweight champion. He had the opportunity. So if that's the case, just let's build a belt, throw it on Sean Porter, and that would be that's the same. Not Sean Porter, but Lamont Peterson. And he's the welterweight champion. He beat Avanesian for the WBC title. He beat Robert Guerrero for the WBC title. Stop playing like we don't know the sport, bro. Like, put in that. At the end of the day, Keith Thurman is not passing the eye test. I wish I could say that about Keith Thurman because I'd be looking at a more competitive fight for myself. The boy is not passing the same eye test there. He's not in the same caliber. If you're judging prospects, you're judging anything, he just ain't in the same league. One guy's going to Duke in North Carolina. The other guy is Clemson bound, baby. That's all I'm telling you.
Clemson basketball, be careful about that.
Yeah, you might want to be clear about that. But
be careful about that.
If you're gonna do comparisons, okay. Keith Thurman had to go through hell with Leonard Bundu. Spence ethered him. If you're gonna go through different type of accomplishments, Manny Pacquiao and Amir Khan, both that are welterweights, couldn't really take out Chris Algieri. If I remember correctly, Spence bodied him too.
Exactly.
So there's substance to the eye test. The unfortunate side effect of it is he's so young that people don't want to believe when it comes to the eye test. That's the bad part of it. You want him to be a little bit older and to have a little bit more fights. The problem is though, he's already shown that he's good at that weight class that he has to force people into fights. He has to, in a way, especially when it comes to Keith Thurman, he has to take away Keith Thurman's options away from him so that he's the only thing left. Because people are already getting tired of Keith Thurman and the little behaviors when it comes to Spence.
Indeed. And let me say for those on boxing Twitter, y'all really need to stop suggesting that just because Jeff Horn beats Manny Pacquiao, an old Manny Pacquiao, that he deserves the mantle of top welterweight in the world. Don't troll me like that. Don't troll serious boxing fans like that. Don't get your feelings hurt. That's all I'm gonna say about that. You can make an argument for Thurman. You can make an argument for Bud. But don't make an argument for Jeff Horn. Not with me. Not here among folks who really watch boxing with serious intent. Let's move on. Talk about the co-feature, if you will, on that Barclays card. Robert Easter Jr. Defending the title against former 130-pound champion Javier Fortuna. And I must admit, guys, my ADD kicked in. Easter got the decision, but I felt Fortuna won. Either way, I don't know what in the world Robert Easter is doing. When I saw him beat Comey for the vacant belt, I thought there was some real promise there. But starting with the Shafikov bout, there seems to be a regression instead of a progression in terms in how he fights. And in this fight right here, in previewing, I said Javier Fortuna fights dumb. But in this case, it was Robert Easter Jr. who fought dumb. Just one of the most stupid approaches, attacks, that I've seen in a while. It made no sense what he was doing. He made the fight a lot tougher than it needed to be. Um, and if anything, I thought he gave the fight away to Fortuna. I'm just going to open it up for everybody here. Um, my frustration level with Easter. I don't know what I don't know what was that. What was that from him? And compounded by the excuse he gave after the ring. Well, it's trouble getting motivated for these fights. Give me Mikey Garcia. Well, sir, well, bruh, you're not earning yourself a shot at Mikey Garcia or Linares based off your last couple performances.
I say that. I say this. I give him this credit. He fighting some damn good opponents. He got to me for the last 2-3 years, probably period. He got a better resume than the other champions at 35. I give him that. And when you fight them good opponents, holes can be shown. If you're not, I never thought East was gonna be the best in the world. So when I seen guys like Shafikov, some Comey, and now Fortuna, I understood like, yo, you're gonna see holes from this kid. You're gonna see leaks, and but that's possible from anybody that fight guys like that. So, and I get it. We think he has his great advantage with his highs and with his height and everything, but Fortuna probably likes fighting that kind of thing because he can get under that. And I saw Robert did get it up a lot, but like I said, Fortuna's a quick man, and he throws punches from crazy angles. If you're tall and up in the air like people want Robert Easter to be, he's going to clip you. He's going to be able to hit you. I'm not really trying to make excuses for him here, but I think some got to give away when we see who he's fighting compared to some of who the other champions are fighting. And this is for the last 3 opponents now. It might be for the next time he jumps in the ring because they keep putting him in tough. And it looks like no more 118 decisions no more. And that's a good thing. So he's going to have to learn quick. I didn't think he won this fight. But at the same time, I didn't think Fortuna won this fight. If that makes any sense in the world, my card was 16-12 Fortuna. But man, I was marking rounds and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. I was just unsure of my card. That would have been one of them cringe moments. If I was a judge, I'd be like, here, I'm turning this in. Whatever happens, happen. If everybody else had a 17-11 for the other guy, I would have looked like an idiot because that's how both of them fought. That's how both of them fought.
I mean, I don't think that Fortuna fought like an idiot. I mean, I thought he fought like Fortuna. He fights relatively similar for most of his fights. Really, I'd say his best performance was when he fought Brian Vasquez. But aside from there, where he was able to kind of outbox Vasquez with his ability to be agile. He's a wild man. He just kind of does what he does at the moment. He's real improvisational. And so that sometimes that can get him into trouble, as it did against Jason Sosa when he got knocked out while he was way up on the cards. And then other times it can make it so that he's really, really difficult to time. And because Easter is such an orthodox type of fighter, I think he just had a lot of trouble just, even getting his jab off. He was hitting nothing but air. He was hitting air with a lot of his right hands. And the thing that Fortuna was doing that was really clever, he was making himself a small target, kind of doing like dipping real low, going side to side, and making Easter reach for him. He's like making himself such a small target. He made Easter reach for him. It almost reminds me of like some of the very, very short guys at the lighter weights do sometimes, the real clever guys like a Chiquita Gonzalez, where, they're so small, they're making themselves even smaller. So they're forcing these guys that are much taller than them that should have a reach advantage over them. They're using that against their opponents. So almost like using their bigger opponent's own leverage against them, which is what Fortuna was doing against Easter. I thought he won the fight. I think Easter not only just showing holes in his game, but I mean showing like iceberg, Titanic-sized holes in his game.
You felt Fortuna won the fight, now too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Easter was lucky to get the decision here, and I think he was lucky to get it against Shafikov. And I say luck with in quotations, because I really think it's just he's the A side, so that's why he got the decision in both of these fights. But beyond that, him against the like true elite guys that can really box, him against Garcia, him against Linares, I don't favor him against either of them. He's these are the type of guys that last few guys that he's been fighting that Garcia and Linares clearly defeat. They're the type of guys that those type of guys clearly defeat. I mean, all you gotta do is just look at what recently happened to Shafikov for an example of that.
First of all, before I go to Gail, I got to give a shout out to my homegirl, Jay from Bad Culture TV. She's listening, live commenting in the chat room. I got to give her a shout out. Uh, I will say for the record, I don't agree um, that Easter has a better resume. That's just my opinion. I disagree with that. But to Nauta's point, he's showing titanic flaws in his game, and I would say again his approach in this fight particularly. Uh, that again, I'm dumbfounded by that, and he just made that fight much harder than it needs to be. I'll go to you, Gail, and then Jacob and Daniel.
Yeah, it was just a very bad performance. Easter is very fortunate that point was taken away from Fortuna in the second round. If not for that, the fight would have been a draw. I could have lived with a draw because you're right. It was a messy fight to score. I'm sure it's a judge's nightmare to have a fight like that in front of them where there's really no clear excellence or direction from either of the guys in the ring. You know, it is true. Sometimes you have a fight, nobody deserves to win, really, and a draw would have been the right conclusion here. I think Easter needs to consider some radical shift in training. New trainer, new location. He needs some infusion of creativity. It's just gone. And it's okay if a guy has a somewhat limited skill set, but you need to learn different ways to deploy that limited skill set. And Easter doesn't, either he doesn't have anyone creative around him or nobody he's currently working with can figure out what to do with him. So he needs to seriously look at what am I going to do over the next 12 months to step up from where I am now. He's very lucky he's not in a more competitive division. If he was, in one of the divisions, anywhere in the 15 pounds underneath him, he'd be in a world of hurt. He is just extremely lucky that he's in that little crevice where he's got a chance at staying at the top. But he won't be there long if he keeps fighting like he did last Saturday. And no one will want to see it.
I see Bo from Truth and Facts has joined us. Let me get him into the discussion so he can catch up. First off, Bo, we were talking Spence and Peterson. Brief breakdown of the fights, and I've stated the case that already Errol Spence is the best welterweight in the world, excuse me. Your thoughts on that? Am I jumping the gun here? As well as provide your commentary on Easter Jr. and Fortuna.
Yeah, you say can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. Let me know if you start getting heavy machinery because I'm still at work.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't have said that on air, but today is one of them days I don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you actually, the thing about it is, it should be Keith Thurman, but for me, the way he's acting, I just don't like the way he's acting. So a lot of people are probably judging it based off the way he's acting. But you also have to look at the fact that Errol Spence he's even when he steps up in level of competition, he's still leaving destruction in his wake. And then you are seeing progression per fight. You're not seeing progression anymore per fight with Keith Thurman. You're seeing the same thing, which is sometimes he gas if you touch him to the body and stuff like that. You know how he starts. He finds his bicycle when you touch him to the body, or when he realized, okay, my punch ain't working. But you see progression with Errol Spence. He showed a lot of tricks in the tool chest in this fight against Lamont Peterson. He came out. He thought Lamont Peterson, the way he came out, he thought Lamont Peterson was going to try to box him, and that jab continues to be more and more effective each and every time out he uses it, right? I think people will say how Errol needs to work more on his head movement, but people only land 24% of their punches on Errol Spence. So I think there's probably too much emphasis on his defense because of what we're seeing, because we probably do see him get hit. And then sometimes Errol gets comfortable, and when he feel like he can't hurt you, he probably don't try to move as much. So for a guy who
he's a little bit cocky in there. He knows he can take a shot, and sometimes he just because.
Well, and then you also look at for a guy who's it's intelligent aggression. He can come at you. He's a good body puncher, and for a southpaw, he has excellent footwork because you don't see headbutts and head clinches and stuff like that. So and I think his ring IQ is underrated. So that fight with Lamont Peterson, in my opinion, it was a good fight. I just think Lamont and them had the wrong game plan. They came out with the entire wrong game plan. And there was something that was crucially said in the corner when they told Lamont, to try to start boxing. Lamont said, well, I'm too far behind on the cards. I can't start that now. And that's when you saw like that whole confusion thing going on in the corner. That's when you realize, okay, he's in trouble. He's in serious trouble, right? So I didn't have a problem with Barry Hunter stopping the fight. I really didn't. And if you watch it, like people say Lamont quit. No, Lamont told Barry, listen, if you stop it, you stop it. I ain't gonna argue with you. Then he looked at him and said, what's up? And when Barry didn't stop it, he went to walk out the fight. So, I didn't have a problem with him stopping the fight. But if you want to say he's the best welterweight just based off of performance, just based off how each fight he's he's leaving destruction in his wake, and you continue to see progression, and he's dominating. I won't argue with people who say that. Now, people who want to say Keith Thurman because he has 2 belts. He did fight Danny Garcia. He did fight Sean Porter. Although I believe Danny Garcia fighting Robert the Ghost Guerrero for a WBC belt was bullshit in the first place. So, but I have no problem with nobody saying Errol Spence. And then when it comes, I've been between Robert Easton Jr. The problem, Robert Easton Jr. needs new training. Listen, I don't care what nobody says. I don't care if you give me the level of competition he's fighting. With the advantages that this boy has, his fights should not ever be this hard.
Thank
He
you.
makes them hard. Here's the thing. I've never seen a guy with the height and reach advantage so wide and miss so short with his jab to the point where the opponent is not even moving his head because he knows this guy can't judge distance, this guy can't judge range at all, period. So I can stand here, wait for him to throw that jab out there and not even move. Then if he tries to get closer, then I'll do a little sidestep, throw one of the wide punches from this angle that he's not looking at. Throw one of these wide punches from that angle he's not looking at. And catch him.
Counter
Right?
those crosses.
And then Javier Fortuna got in Robert Easter Jr.'s head. It is something about these dudes like Boner, and you can get in these boys' heads. And when he got in his head, that's when the game plan or whatever he was trying to do went out the window. And he started fighting Javier Fortuna's fight instead of his own. You should not be 5'11", fighting the dude 5'6", and he's headlocking you every time because you don't know to think to instead of bob and weave or take a half step back, you're dipping, leaning forward to where this dude can just put you in the headlock every single time. So that goes your ring IQ. So he needs, in my opinion, he needs he needs a whole new trainer. He makes fights harder than what they should be because I think somebody said it earlier. I look at some of these guys he fights and I'm like, okay, Linares wouldn't have this problem. Mikey Garcia wouldn't have this problem. So even if you want to say, well, he's fighting tough guys, there's still dudes he has an advantage over that he should be beating. Or his fight should at least be this hard. So I had Javier Fortuna winning this fight. I had Javier Fortuna winning this fight. So, but Robert Easter Jr. is fortunate that he's the A side in these fights because I really don't believe he would get these kind of decisions. If people knew who Shafikov was more or Richard Comey was more, they probably would have got those victories over Robert Easter, in my opinion.
Comey, yeah, guys like Comey and then Fortuna, I think they right in there with Linares, and I think they become one of the best opponents Mikey Garcia's ever fought. I honestly do. Like, I'm not gonna say like an Adrian Broner is not hungry is a better opponent than a Comey. These guys are hungry. They come in to fight. I think they give Mikey Garcia damn good fights. I wish he'd fight some of them.
Let's get Jacob and Daniel into this discussion about Easter Jr. and Comey. First, you, Jacob.
For me, I mean, I had Fortuna winning the fight, but unfortunately, he did one of the things that I can't fucking stand, which he didn't make weight. Which that part,
how you gonna miss weight?
I don't want.
How you gonna miss weight when you're moving up a division?
And he missed it bad too. He
can't stop eating, man. Can't stop eating. He's a hungry fighter.
You know what? I don't want to hear his griping that he should have won the fight and all that stuff when you didn't do your original job, which is make the fucking weight. So for me, I'm kind of glad that Easter was given the victory, even though I thought Fortuna won. But you're disrespecting the sport and your opponent by not making weight, which is the first thing you have to do. And he didn't just not make weight; he missed it by a wide margin. So, that's what, in my opinion, that's kind of like the boxing gods. That's what you get for disrespecting that. But everybody's saying, a lot of the same things that I think about, that I agree with Easter, is that he doesn't use his skills and his attributes to his advantage. And, you gotta start looking at, maybe he doesn't have the right trainer, corner, whatever, or he's not being, coached correctly. There's no way he should be having this much trouble. So unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen overnight. So if he keeps on fighting, if he gets a top competition, I think he's going to be in for a pretty heavy loss. But there was parts of the fight that were ugly, but it was still pretty entertaining. And hopefully, we'll see. Easter does stay pretty active, so we'll see where he goes from here. And Fortuna, fucking lay off the cheeseburgers. I don't know.
This is a full show tonight. I see EJ Boxing Live has joined us. I'm going to go to him in a bit. But I want Daniel, your thoughts on Easter Jr. and Fortuna.
There's a lot that can be said. I'm going to be repeating from everybody else, in the sense of the fact that, unfortunately, Robert Easter is the type of fighter that he reminds me, I said this last week, he reminds me of little Santa Cruz, that he doesn't use his advantages as much as he should. They should be able to use his height. He should be able to use it, but he doesn't. Unfortunately, to me, Easter's the type of fighter that wants to actually fight a guy and then only use his advantages when he feels the other guy's tired. That works when your fighters aren't as tough as Comey, Shakakov, or Fortuna. And Easter has fought all three of them and fought them all pretty much almost the exact same way. Now, the probably main issue that I had with him fighting Fortuna the way he did is Fortuna has the chaos engine in many ways. It's true. He has skill. He can use his skills wisely, but he's going to fight in ways that are going to make you scratch your head. Are going to frustrate you at times if you're the opponent. And that's what he did against Easter. He got in his head. He tried to fight Fortuna's fight. He let Fortuna hurt him at least 3 times in the fight. And there were visible times where you could tell Robert Easter was hurt off of Fortuna left hook. So, and then it winds up to it. And the main saving grace two saving graces that he had, that Robert Easter had, was number one, obviously that point deduction, which by the looks of it, you can say is pretty justified, because otherwise it would have been a draw. And 2, the fact that the IBF, if even that wouldn't have happened, it said, you know what, because the other guy to make weight, win or lose either way, you keep your belt. Normally, if a guy loses, normally when a guy loses, the belt becomes vacant. No, the IBF in this case said, win or lose, you keep the belt. So that's the 2 main graces, but I don't know what is it about the band camp area. I don't know if it's Robert Stafford not teaching guys to a certain level what to do. Or Mike Stafford. But yeah, I do think that Easter has to probably get away from that area. He has to get with a trainer that's actually going to make him use those skills, make him use that height, make him use that reach throughout the fight. Because it's one thing when you're barely beating the Comeys. You're barely beating the Shakakovs. You're barely beating the Fortunas. it's not going to fly with like a guy like a Mikey Garcia who can outskill you. It's not going to last with a Jorge Linares who can outquick you. So he has to fundamentally change his plan. If it means leaving Bandcamp, that's probably what he has to do, because in many ways, some people, I think you even mentioned it, Mike, on Twitter, he's pretty much stayed the same throughout these fights, if not regressed a little bit. You haven't seen any lessons learned from those 3 fights.
You know what he should do? You know what he should do?
Mm-hmm.
Easter, you know what he should do? Reach out to Derek James in Texas.
James, Rozier in Brooklyn.
Trainer of the year.
Yep.
James. Or if he wants to go old school, you know what he could do? Reach out to Eddie Mustafa Muhammad out there in Vegas and train at the Mayweather gym. That's what he could do.
That's not going to happen. Not with Broner guiding his career.
I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm saying that's what he should do.
Yeah.
That's
I think the use of the word
something of the like at the very least. Yeah.
I see EJ Boxing Live is on here. Let me give him a chance. I'll give him his. I want his opinion on Spence Thurman. Briefly recap the fight, EJ. And am I wrong here in thinking that already Errol Spence is the best welterweight in the world? And also give you a brief breakdown of Easter Jr. and Fortuna.
Yeah, Spence Thurman was a mismatch. Was it Spence? What am I talking about? Spence Thurman.
Spence Peterson
was a mismatch. Yeah, it's a mismatch. Yeah, and he ain't the best welterweight in the world. He needs to do something. Keith Thurman is the number 1 welterweight in the world, and until someone proves otherwise, he's done the heavy lifting. He's supposed to beat who he's supposed to beat. Kell Brook got beat up by Golovkin. His eyes were busted up already. So, he went in there and did what he did. And then that's it. Like, he ain't doing nothing. So he ain't doing nothing to me that he ain't supposed to do. The guy
if they were to fight tomorrow, who would you pick?
What, Furman and Errol Spence?
Yeah.
It'd be a good fight. I think I'll pick Furman, man. I pick Furman because Furman's based on the level of competition he's been going against.
I don't care about based on what they both
the competition. I'm telling you, the level of competition he's been going against. When he's going against Sean Porter, when he's going against undefeated Danny Garcia, the level of competition. This is what you do, right? When Manny Pacquiao wanted the Floyd fight, what did he do? He wiped out all of Floyd's opponents before, and he made it a raging necessity to get the fight. So if Errol Spence wants to get the fight with Keith Thurman and Keith Thurman won directly, then wipe out the opponents quicker than what he did. That's what I'm saying.
But he kind of did that.
Who gets who? Which guy?
Wait a minute.
Which guy? Peterson.
Bundu. First of all, Bundu.
And then what? Bundu? Bundu? 2 years off. 2 years off. No.
Let me finish. You asked me a question. Let me give my complete.
No, you asked me a question. And I'm asking your question. I'm telling you, right? And I ain't finished what I'm saying anyway, by the way. Yeah, I'm telling you that Keith Thurman's number 1. So, and talking about, I think you want to ask me about you can continue after I finish. After you talking about the Easter's fine. Like, if something ain't break, why fix it? Like, I don't understand. Like, he needs to go change this. He's obviously like, look, maybe if you want to change, you might go up a weight. But having Fortuna, southpaw midget, like, he was trying to stop him at every opportunity. He wasn't trying to outbox him, which he should do. He was just trying to outstop him. He had no respect for him, and he had more respect for him, he would have boxed properly. There's nothing wrong with Easter. Easter was just looking for opportunity to embarrass Javier Fortuna, that he's seen Javier Fortuna get beat up. Javier Fortuna, like he said, we came in overweight and he was strong and he surprised them, and that's what it is. I gave them Easter the fight by 1 round. I scored it. I scored it on my not my podcast, on my live stream. He won the round. There's nothing wrong with his training or anything like that. Easter is just over ambitious, because if it was the case when he went against Cormier, it's one of the greatest fights of, I think it was last year. It was a great fight. There was nothing wrong with him there. So what's happened since? It's just really you're going at level of the opponents. The Javier Fortuna is not easy to fight. He's very tricky. Slick, and Javier Fortuna can come back and do something in the division, whichever division he chooses to get in it, that is, because he was overweight. But he's a very tricky customer. He's a proven veteran, and that's what it is. I don't get what everyone's getting at about changing trainers and this guy's better than that guy.
The
when
fact
really
that
and
his jab
truly,
is ineffective.
like I said to you, he was over. If you can see the fight, he was trying to knock him out. He wasn't trying to set nothing up.
Yeah, well, him
Okay.
trying to knock him out is a problem. That's a problem in itself.
No, that's not. No, it isn't because
It is.
Coming into the fight
It
again.
is because he had an opponent that was never hurt at a single point in the fight.
No, listen to me, right? Javier Fortuna has been punched up all the time. He's been punched up, right? He's been
No, he hasn't. He's been knocked out once. He has one loss, and that was in a fight that he won.
He's always getting punched.
That he won.
I ain't having a back and forth with you. I'm telling you what I'm telling you, yeah? He's been punched up. He was picked as an opponent to get beaten down. And that's what Easter had no respect for him. And that's how he showed it.
Because Easter's gassed up.
Yeah, well, that's the way you guys had your opinion, and my opinion is different from y'all. So that's the way it is. I see it as this: Easter can be better if Easter sticks to his game plan. If he doesn't, you're gonna see another like subpar performance. But there's nothing really needs to change.
Now we're gonna see a loss. We're not gonna see another subpar.
Why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me now? Like this is a respectable podcast. It ain't my joint. Let me say my piece, right? So this is right. What I'm saying is this, yeah. Right, Easter. It's all really about what Easter wants to do, right? You don't need to change no trainer. Easter have more respect for his opponents and stick to the game plan of what the guy. Use your range, yeah. Use your quickness and let's stick to that. Because I tell you what, the next opponent he get close, like he might get chin checked. All right, so that's what I gotta say, man. Michael, you can rebuttal what I said about who's the best of the division. Go ahead.
As far as Easter, the problem is the fact that he's not using his height in a consistent manner. And he hasn't done it for the past few fights. That's an issue. That alone is a cause for concern as far as Easter. Now, as far as back to Spence, you say he needs to fight fighters that Thurman has fought already. Okay, Bundu. Okay, you want the 2-year layoff? Fair enough. But he just beat a guy. Let me finish. He just beat a guy who gave Keith Thurman trouble. More than a few folks thought that Peterson. He fought a guy in Peterson who a lot of people felt beat Garcia. Garcia gave Keith Thurman at the very least a competitive fight. So indirectly, he's doing what you're asking him to do. He's doing what you're asking him to do. Do you give him any kind of credit for that?
No, I'm not about indirectly. I'm about direct, right? If he wants to fight, if you ask me who's the best in the division, I say Keith Thurman is the best in the division by resume, and I'm telling you, if he wants to do that, he's supposed to beat Peterson, man. And I'm talking about indirectly. Do go in there and blow out the opponents quicker. That's what I'm saying. And that he ain't doing that, so I don't rate Errol Spence any better. He knows he needs to do heavy lifting. I don't give him no indirectly nothing. I'm just telling you how it is, right? I see Keith Thurman is the number one, and he's doing what Mayweather did to him. He's saying, I don't need to fight you when I'm ready. And then that's right. You don't need to fight him. If Errol Spence wants to fight him, like I said, he can blow out his opponents, or you can make yourself number one challenger for his belt. Other than that, yeah, stay in your lane. That's it. I mean, keep talking on one side. Keith Thurman going to do in his side until someone loses, and then see what happens. But really and truly, that's how it's gonna be when you're the A side. But you're gonna start dictating things. You heard him already. I don't know if you saw the video on the boxing voice. We're gonna come back. We're probably gonna have a rematch with Porter.
Yeah.
And
the fans gonna show him he ain't much of an A side. They just gonna say, dude, we passed you. That's what's about to happen to him. He ain't no Floyd Mayweather. He ain't got that leverage.
Yeah. And anyways, yeah. Like I said to you, yeah. If you heard the boxing voice video, he actually explained himself, and he's been talking recently on the Seconds Out. So you guys can check their videos, and that's his mindset, and he's sticking to it, and he's the number one until prove otherwise, and that's all I have to say.
And all I have to say, if he does that and he still doesn't fight him, that's on Thurman. That's on Thurman.
He's gonna lose against Vargas. Watch.
If he does all that with you granting and he still doesn't want to fight him, that's going to be on Thurman. It's going to be on Thurman. And all his concessions about whatever, He's doing the heavy lifting. He started with Peterson. He'll probably have the number one contender next. He's going to continue to do it. And if we don't see that fight in another year, in another year to year and a half, can't give him no more excuses. Miss me with the two belt stuff. Miss me with that. But speaking of the interview and yesterday, let's move on to the news section, which we will talk about. Boxing up front, Showtime announcements. Multiple fights is going to happen over the next 2 months. Starting next month with Danny Garcia. He's fighting David Benavidez, is fighting Richard Gavril in March. Waldo Ortiz on the undercard of that. Jamal Charlo and Centennial on the 3rd. On the 10th of March, Mikey Garcia fighting Lipinets. Rances Bartholomew fighting Karalik. April 7th, a unification bout at 154 between Lara and Hurd. On the 21st, Adrian Broner fighting Omar Figueroa. Gervonta Davis is fighting on that same card. May 19th, Thurman's fighting a fighter to be announced. We're hearing Jesse Vargas. The word is Jesse Vargas, though with no official announcement yet. Also on the 19th, Adonis Stevenson fighting Badu Jack, WBC light heavyweight title. June 9th, Leo Santa Cruz is fighting Abner Mars at featherweight. Jamal Charlo will be defending his 154-pound title. And finally, Errol Spence going to fight in Dallas, presumably against his number one guy, his mandatory guy by the name of Ocampo. I'm going to go around here, starting with Gail, ladies first. Because we have so many folks here tonight, I'm giving you opportunity to pick your 2 fights that you're looking forward to the most. Unmute your mic, Gail.
I'm not entirely sure I've got a favorite yet. I'm glad to see the schedule filling out. All due credit to the crew, to Showtime, to Steven Espinoza for putting a lot of this stuff together. I can't say I was terribly overwhelmed by this, but let me see if I could pick one. First of all, I have to say I'm not entirely convinced we're going to see Wilder and Ortiz happen, but we'll see what drug testing reveals. I think my top pick is going to be Santa Cruz and Mares 2, because the first fight was not only was the first fight superb, Mares has shown some real fire in what I would consider a comeback, particularly in his last fight. And I'm always happy to see David Benavidez in the ring, who's a real talent, especially at an incredibly young age. And I think that's where I'm going to go. I've always been a fan of the smaller weight divisions. So Benavidez is as big as I'm going to go off that list.
I'll go to you, Bo. Which 2 fights are you looking forward to the most?
Mike, I'll be honest with you, man. I can't even sit here and tell you which 2 fights I'm looking forward to the most, because they're good fights. I can't sit back and say that they're great fights, or they're like one fight particularly jumps out at me. So they're all good fights. They're all good star fights for the first half of the year. The only fight that I take issue with is that Danny Garcia versus Brandon Rios for some title eliminate. I think that's straight bullshit. But outside of that, man, they're all fights. They're all good fights. They're all proven ground fights. Edis Lady Lotta has earned his name back from me. Don't Ask Chickenson has earned his name back from me. So I get that. Wilder and Ortiz, okay. I'm glad it's happening, but okay. So I can't say it. There's no 2 fights I can step up that I'm looking forward to. I'm just looking at all of them. I think they're, like I said, I think they're all good fights. No fight to me is a great fight. They're good fights. They're a good way to start the year. I just got issue with that one fight, and that's that Danny Garcia fight, and then the forever opponent TBA is with Keith Thurman. Like, I don't understand what's going on there, and I guess now he's fighting in May instead of April now. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like I said, Omar Figueroa and Adrian Broner. I don't want to hear nothing about a focused Broner, but You know, Omar Figueroa has a style that could give Adrian Broner problems, but you know, so you know, I'm just glad that they got the cards. So now we know what the first half of the fights are. We got fights. You know what? I take it back. There is one fight. David Benavidez and Gabriel, because David Benavidez fought that fight all wrong the first time. So I'm gonna keep my eye on that fight. I want to see if he's learned something from that fight, and if he showed me that he has something different, or that he's went, you know, and realized, hey, okay, there are things I could have did different and better. He showed a little bit of an experience in that fight. So that would be one I would keep my eye on, only because it's a part two to a fight, and I want to see what has he learned. Has either guy learned something from it? So yeah, that's about it for me, Mike.
Um, one thing, RKO, and Quantum for joining me in the chat. He's saying that Jesse Vargas is online saying that Thurman has ducked the fight. I'm going to ask him right now. Can you provide me a link to where Vargas said that, because I hadn't seen it. I'll go to you. I'll go to you, Scorsese. I already know what one of your fights are. What one of your fights is, but what's the other fight you're looking forward to?
So the one you don't know, I guess Heard Linares is gonna do it for me. The Negro Leagues. I thought for too long they were depending on holding their hand up, saying, Floyd, come back up here. Canelo, give me a shot. And they done with that now. And they just say, okay, we're gonna fight each other. We're gonna make our own names, and they doing the right damn thing. So I'm in love with what Jared Hurd is doing, the competition that he's fighting. It's his second current and former world champion in a row, putting himself right back in fight of the year contention again. And I'll be honest with you, I hope he knocked Lara the fuck out. That's what I want to see, a changing of a guard at 54, and then Jamel Charlo gets it on with him later. And of course, for me, the fight that is the most organic, well, to me to make, and one of the best fights I've seen made this decade. You got Badu Jack fighting his sixth former or current world champion in a row, world titleist in a row. That is not some fluke. He's fighting a 5-year reigning lineal champion. His second fight at 175, he's going to his backyard like so many other guys refused to do, didn't want to do. You can find interviews of Virgil Hunter said, who said we going to Canada? Well, you ain't got to worry about that with Badu Jack. He manning up, and he trying to knock a 40-year-old clean out, and this 40-year-old still fight like he don't know what his age is. So I can't wait, man. The other fights, they fall way under that. Wilder Ortiz would be the third best one, but we known about that one. So I really didn't even know why they presented that way. But I do like Broner Figueroa I just want him to do him like he did Robert Guerrero. That's what I want to see happen.
Oh, you want Figueroa to do the Broner? What? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I got you.
I want him to fuck Broner up. Man, get dude out of here, man. Like, he come up to the podium, just, what's up, my nigga? Like, man, dog, I can see if you was winning, I'd be like, hi, he's just fucking around. Fuck him. It is the shit. He's a fuck. You can't win. You ain't won no big fight. You just in the way. Like, yeah, I got to show these. I'm hungry. I got to turn up again, man. Turn down forever. How about that? Turn down forever.
EJ Boxing Live. What's two fights you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, first and foremost, I like to say that what the PVC is doing is great. I think they took a page out of the UFC book where Dana White used to have all the champions raid up, and they get ready for the season before, and they let everyone know what fights are coming up to get people ready. And I think applaud to the PVC and obviously the fighters themselves for doing that. Now I'm looking on the stylistically, like girl put a good fight, which the rematch is going to be good. But for me, there's like two fights first off, right? Because you got the Bull and the Matador, Gerald Hurd versus Lara. I love that fight right there, because like Low Place has pointed out that you might have a change of the guard. Lara to me is one of the most boringest dudes ever. Like, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, like, but I ain't gonna lie, on this one, I think he might win it. Last time I picked Lara was when he fought Canelo. Yeah, I thought that he could win that fight. He goes Cuban school, but I just like the hard coming forward, hunting Lara down. Lara trying to back foot. Which one can implement their styles before the 12th round goes? So can Lara touch him up enough, and can Hurd get to him? Can touch him up to the body, and that fight is very good. The second fight, and you know Como Medina, you know y'all gonna go for Omar Figueroa
Funky
and Broner.
Cold
Like,
Medina. Oh
fucking
boy.
go Medina, yeah, fucking go Medina. That's my boy, Omar. I've been talking about Omar Figueroa for the longest, but that's my guy. It's a shame that fight never happened at lightweight, man. It's a shame it never happened at lightweight. Omar Broner moved up. Omar
Funky
Figueroa picked up
Cold
that.
Medina. Go ahead.
Yeah, he picked up that belt, and Broner they never fought. Right, it would have been a great fight at lightweight, but we're meeting at, I believe it is it 140. It's
They
140.
say 140, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a catchweight because I don't think both fighters can get down to 140.
But let's go. Let's stick it for 140 for now. So if they change it, then so be it. But at 140, the fight is great. It's a great stylistically match. You know, Omar Figueroa is very unorthodox. Broner for some reason dislikes Mayweather in such a way that he's abandoned his Philly shell. And since he's abandoned it, he looks normal and he's easy to hit, like you saw with Danny Garcia. If you look how he was just fighting like a brawler when he was technically boxing, having the Philly show was much more. So I look for Broner to try and bring that back. He needs to bring that back, but if he doesn't, you're gonna get a war. So I think stylistically that fight right there could be a very good fight. All the other fights people win, but for me, them two stylistically fights could be really good. Broner, I think actually I'm gonna pick Broner in that fight to beat Figueroa. I think Broner should beat him compared to what he should be, but Broner has dropped levels down, and maybe Figueroa is on the way up in terms of what he's doing. So maybe he will, but Broner should be able to win that fight. I picked Broner and Power on that one, but it's a great fight. There's some great fights on that card. It's just my preference in terms of styles. I'm sure the other guys have got other reasons, man. So that's my preference.
Daniel, and then finally Jacob.
First off, we all have to give thanks to Steven Espinosa for making this card this calendar the way it has, because he was looking 3 years ago like Boo Boo the Fool when the PBC was being launched, and then lo and behold, 3 years later, all of these fights in some way or another would have been on different PBC channels. They're all on Showtime. Got to give props to Espinosa on that. But as far as two fights, obviously to me, Wilder Ortiz, because it's the best fight that both men need. Ortiz wants a legitimate title shot. His team almost screwed it up for him. Now he gets a second chance. And for Wilder, obviously, Ortiz is going to be his best opponent. The second fight was a little bit hard to pick because I wanted to say Laura Hurd because I'm kind of tired of Laura just not fighting unifications, but I'm going with Benavidez and Gravel. That was a good fight the first time. And not to mention that you're going to be doing this around the same time that at least one of the semifinals of the World Boxing Super Series is getting close to happening. So you're setting yourself up as David Benavidez as the guy, if he wins, and if he wins impressively, to say the winner of that World Boxing Super Series has to see me. Has to see me, or you can say the same thing because he's also fighting soon, but obviously on ESPN, Zurdo Ramirez. Those are the two fights I'm looking forward to because all the rest of them are fights I expected it. Even like Gervonta Davis, like today, he's working on a deal with Billy Dib. But it's Wilder Ortiz.
Which is some BS, by the way.
Yeah, we're gonna. That's why I left it alone for a bit.
That's some BS, but proceed.
Yeah. Well, luckily it's only a title eliminator. It's not for the vacant belt. It's only a title eliminator, so which probably means that Tevin Farmer's getting the shot at the vacant belt. So, but Wilder Ortiz, Benavidez Gravel too, because that is going, particularly Benavidez Gravel too, because that is going to be a slugfest to me.
Finally, Jacob.
Mine's gonna be Spence Thurman. Oh wait, no, that's not on there. But I'm gonna go with Scorsese.
You saw that side-eye Spence gave Thurman at the press conference.
Keith sometimes Thurman. I love it.
You saw that side-eye.
So I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with Scorsese on this one. I think the Stevenson Jack is a really good fight. The second one, I want to say, part of me wants to say Santa Cruz Mares because I'll be there, but I'm really interested in that Lara Hurd fight. I think that's a really good fight. I think Hurd is going to make Lara. He's going to push Lara, and I think that could end up being a really good fight. But shit, yeah, I'll go with Hurd Lara because I have seen Cruz Mars. I don't think Mars is going to beat Cruz, and I think it'll be more of just the same of the first fight. So I'll go with the matchup we haven't seen yet.
I'll end this off before we start to preview what's happening this weekend and shut the show down. Look, I've been critical of Adonis Stevenson in the past. I think the fact that he hasn't, you hadn't seen him in some of the big fights over the past couple of years, some of that responsibility does go on to him. It's not just on, say, a Kathy Duva or Kovalev or Ward or his promotional sides. There has to be some culpability all around. But with that being said, the fight with him and Baldu Jack, that's one of the better matchups of the year. Best fight in that division since Kovalev Ward 1 and 2. I applaud Yvonne Michelle. I applaud the money team for coming together and making that fight happen when you heard word low key that fight might happen. So kudos to them. It's an up for grabs fight for me. I can see scenarios where both guys win. The one thing I will say, Adonis Stevenson better be in shape because if he's not, he's going to be in trouble late in that fight. Second fight, Lara Hurd. Fascinating matchup to me. The question is, Hurd, on paper, Lara should outbox him and outbox him rather well, easily, based on skill set. But Jared Hurd, if you saw him at the press conference, this dude is a monster size-wise. He's humongous for a 154-pound fighter. He looked a full, not one division, but 2 divisions bigger than Erislandy Lara. And he has this way of having guys fight his fight. He has a way of making guys work very, very hard in there, harder than they're used to normally working. Can he force his will on someone with the skill set and the experience of Erislandy Lara? That's going to be the question. So from that perspective alone, fascinating fight. So my 2 fights are Adonis Stevenson, Baldu Jack. It's going to happen May 19th. And Jared Hurd, Erislandy Lara, Jared Hurd, April 7th. Let's move on to preview the fights that's happening this weekend. 2 fights on HBO. Inglewood, California. Lucas Matthysse fighting Tewa Kiram for a belt, if you will, at 147 pounds. I'm just going to go around to anybody here who wants to respond. For those familiar with Kiram, fighter from Thailand, I've seen him on tape. Slower foot, but he has a good skill set, and I think style matchup, it has a chance. The styles mesh to make a pretty good bout. My question is, does he have the experience to deal with someone like a Matthysse? And plus, when he jabs, sometimes he doesn't bring it all the way back. So again, Matthysse, Kiram, for those who want to comment on it, please do.
This is going to be Kiram's first fight outside Thailand, and he picked a pretty big stage when you're talking about the Forum in Los Angeles. If you look at his opponents, uninspiring would be a kind word to look at his opponents. There's nobody of note at all. But you could say the same thing about Srisakat Sorungvasai before he came over first to New York and then to Los Angeles and unfortunately demolished Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. So with that, that is what's on everyone's mind. Is this guy Kiram another Rungvisai? Probably not, but he looks like a classic all-action fighter. That's all the fans are going to care about. Matthysse had a very interesting comeback fight. He's moved up to welterweight, obviously, and he absolutely took apart Emmanuel Taylor. He looked great. In fact, he probably put on the best fight of the entire Canelo-Golovkin undercard to me. I believe it was a non-televised fight. I was there. I don't actually recall if it was a fight shown on television. I don't believe so. He looked great. Honestly, he looked great. So this would be very interesting. He's been training in India with Joel Diaz. I think that was a good matchup for him. And I guess he's been sweating bricks in the desert while everybody else is freezing. And it'd be interesting to see what he can deliver. And, whether we have a Rungvisai or, a guy who just, record reflects somewhat of a lack of competition. We won't know until Saturday. So it makes it worth watching.
I'm going to you, EJ, with this unmute your mic. I was talking to you about this yesterday, and I'll bring it here, and you know where I'm going. My fear is, we talked about a Thailand fighter by the name of Tewa at flyweight, glossy record, kind of similar resume, but when you saw him on film, he looked very good. However, when he got his title opportunity last year, he flopped. He got stopped in 3.
Mm-hmm.
I have same fears here, possible fears here. Your thoughts?
I don't know about. Hey, listen, man. Ain't no one like Rungvisai, man. Rungvisai's my dude. Now,
I'm not talking about Rungvisai.
No. I'm talking about that. I'm just trying to make a comparison.
Okay.
You let me speak.
Go ahead, man.
I'm trying to say, I know. I'm doing me. I'm just saying, ain't no one like Rungvisai, man. All them other dudes, man, they ain't gonna live up to that. They may do. He could be possibly, but I'll be fair. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know too much about him. Matthysse, I know Matthysse looked to me on the slide. I don't really rate Emmanuel Taylor. It should be. This is a fight where is Matthysse got anything left, or he could end up like that guy. Who's that guy Keith Herman knocked out the other day? That guy, the Diego, whatever his name is. I can't remember his name. Some Argentinian.
Diego Chavez.
Diego Chavez.
Yeah. Like it could be like that. You know what I'm saying? Like Diego Chavez was talked up. He was this dude. And Matthysse could end up like that. Just the other day, it was the machine. After Danny put it on him. Since then, Postal put it on him. You know what I'm saying? So it's how much left does Matthysse left? He may knock him out. So what? If the Thailand guy beats him, okay, we got another star. So really and truly, like we have to see how much are left at the both. And one could coming up, one going down. But to be fair, Nao knows about it better than me, so I think you want to ask him this. But like, I don't think he's a wrong side, but he could be. I don't know, because he ain't no pound for pound. To get into a situation like a wrong side, you need another 1 pound for pound, and Matthysse definitely ain't that. So I don't expect that unless he's fighting an A-level fighter, which is like Chocolito, in my opinion.
I'll go to you now. Are my fears in terms of the comparison between Kiram and Nawapam, are they valid based on what you've seen of Kiram?
I mean, they might be and they might not be, because here's the thing: like, Nawapam was a really good boxer. Like, he was so good that they thought higher of him. The M150 camp in Thailand thought higher of him than they did of Srisaket. He was their star. Srisaket wasn't. Rungvisai was the afterthought. He was the stepchild. Nawapam was the prized, guy going into the fight with Choritos Hernandez. And he was actually winning that fight up until Hernandez managed to catch him and then stop him right afterwards. He's since come back, and I still expect him to do some pretty good things. But the way I see it, he just kind of got caught. With Kiram, you don't necessarily see as much talent overtly. He doesn't look like he's as skilled a fighter as Nawapam. And he's not necessarily as physical a force as Srisaket. Srisaket is a fighter unto himself. There's very few guys you can compare to him. I can maybe compare somebody like an Adonis Stevenson or like an Errol Spence. Just guys that are just so overwhelmingly physical. It doesn't matter how good you are technically.
Srisaket is modern day Calcite Galaxy. Yeah. That's the thing. He's so brutal that it might not matter how good you are. It might not matter, but getting back to Kiram though,
he's a guy that he seems to be very physically strong himself, yes, but he's not as overtly physical as Srisake. He's not as much of a bully as him. He's a little bit more technical. He tends to be a little bit more moderately paced. He doesn't have quite as much of a sense of urgency, but he's been so dominant against everybody that he's been fighting. You could say that maybe it's because of the level of opposition, but it's the level of opposition that you would expect somebody that is a top level fighter to dominate. And he has been dominating them without any real trouble whatsoever. Any real like he's been hit a couple of times. He's taken it just fine. He looked completely calm as he's under the fire, and he fights through it, and he's stopping these guys. Really, I think it's gonna come down to if Matthysse lands a good shot on him, can he take it? And at the very least, typically or stereotypically or what have you, with regards to top level Thai fighters, they have some of the best punch resistance out there. And so if he happens to be of that same ilk as a Srisake in that fashion of being able to take a shot from Matthysse is in for a long night. Because I do think that Matthysse can and will hit him, especially under Joel Diaz's tutelage. I think Joel Diaz is really one of the premier trainers in the sport. And I think that Matthysse, since he's gotten with him, has improved immensely, from where he was. I think he was really stuck in a rut and almost on a downward spiral, and now he's back on an upswing since the Taylor fight. So I'm expecting about as good of a Matthysse as we've seen since the Danny Garcia fight, and it's really just a matter of if he's able to hurt Kiram with a shot, and if he's not, then I think Kiram's going to beat him. I think he's just gonna mentally get into his head and really just put a beating on him late, because he's got that type of a style where if you allow him to kind of do what he wants and start to bully you, he will. And if Matthysse can't dissuade him from doing that, then that's what's gonna happen.
I'm going to open up for everybody else here. Any comments on this fight between Matthysse and Kiram?
Yeah, Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing though. See, Kiram and now to hit up on earlier. The thing about these Thai fighters is they are mentally tough as hell. You're not going to discourage these guys because they already know, coming into the fight, nobody expects nothing much out of them. So they're coming in with their chip on their shoulder. Well, let me show you what I can do. I think people are probably putting too much in Kiram doing what Ramvasai did, because Ramvasai just happened to run into the right opponent in Roman Gonzalez, which what I mean by right opponent is it was the right time to catch him, because Roman Gonzalez, head trainer, had just passed away. He was unhappy with money, with his money. So he had a very close person die. And then, of course, he was unhappy with his money. So his mind wasn't mentally like in that fight. And I think that played a lot into it also. So, but the thing about this fight, though, is I know Lucas Matthysse. See, Lucas Matthysse beat Emmanuel Taylor, but Emmanuel Taylor had also lost to Chris Algieri, Roscoe, and Adrian Broner. So I don't know if this Lucas Matthysse still is mentally right. I just don't know. I'm not confident that this Lucas Matthysse has regained who he was back when they was calling him the Machine. And this would be a test for it, because the one thing about this guy he's fighting, Kareem, is he's going to be mentally tough. He's going to come in. If he can take Lucas Matthysse punch, then once he realizes, hey, I can take your punch, then he's going to start giving, and he's going to start coming. And then we're going to see what happens if Lucas Matthysse won't wither underneath that type of pressure. So it's an interesting fight. I do like what Joel Diaz is doing with Lucas Matthysse, even as far as his footwork. His footwork is even a little bit better. Lucas Matthysse footwork, I never was high on his footwork. His footwork has gotten a little bit better. So it's an intriguing, interesting fight. This one's really hard for me to pick. It really is hard for me to pick. So, man, it's a 50-50 fight, but it's a good fight. I like it.
I want to say thanks Scorsese for joining us on the show. He had to dip out early. We'll see him on the other side. Jacob, Daniel, your thoughts on this fight?
I don't know too much about the opponent, but I agree with a lot of what everybody said. They're Thai fighters, very tough. You can't let them fighting in the States for the first time kind of fool you. It doesn't mean that they're not good fighters. But I think I'm going to go with Matthysse on this one. I do think that he's going to kind of right the ship, so to speak. And I don't know that he'll ever be. I don't know if he has the ability to be the top guy in the division. I feel like he missed those opportunities, but I think that he still has power and he can still hurt people. So I think he will hurt the opponent, and I could see maybe like a mid to mid round stoppage.
Daniel?
That's luckily not. I was about to ask that question not to Nijay when it came to Gesta. Kiram, because I haven't seen much of them. And with Matthysse, I think this is probably going to be the best chance to see how well this relationship that he now has with Joe Diaz is working. Because, okay, you beat Emmanuel Taylor. That's pretty much, like I said, right now, career junior welterweight. Where both of you pretty much essentially making your real debuts at welterweight. This is going to be your second chance against what sounds to be a Thai fighter that's going to be pretty tough, that's been dominant in the fighters that he has faced, but he hasn't faced anybody of note. I'm probably going to say Matthysse most likely going to win because he's as far as boxing was probably the more polished of the two. And one thing with Joe Diaz will teach a little bit more defense. So he may be a little bit more defensive savvy as this goes on compared to what he was before. And that's one of the keys that was always missing from Matthysse. He always had power, but at times he needed his defense to really bail him out of situations that he was too brave for, like early on in the Molina fight or in the Postel fight. So gotta give it to Matthysse, but I wouldn't be surprised if Crown pulls the upset.
Matthysse should win, but I'm with you, Daniel. I wouldn't be surprised if Kiram wins, particularly if we see some vulnerability still, as Bo alluded to, from Matthysse, if he's not right 100%, not physically, but more important mentally. Kiram, based on the Thai tradition, there's some tough men, there's some tough fighters. So fight we're looking forward to, and I think it's going to be a very good fight on the undercard of Matthysse Kiram. We're going to have Jorge Linares fighting Gesta. Again, Mercito, Gesta, I just open it up here. For those who want to comment, give your breakdown, please do.
Well, Gesta is a San Diego resident now, where I am, a native of the Philippines, and he was doing great things, undefeated, up until he lost to Miguel Vasquez in 2012. And at that point, his career just stalled. He's only had 6 fights in 5.5 years, and that includes 2 18-month layoffs. And I really can't see a reason why that happened. And I don't think it served him too well. But hey, he's a good guy. He does work hard. He'll put on a decent opposition. But come on, who are we kidding? This is a stay busy fight for Linares because of Mikey Garcia fooling around, entertaining offer after offer from Golden Boy and turning them all down. Mauricio Suleiman at the WBC claims, hey, I am not going to let them, and I don't think he said this exactly in Spanish or in English, but I don't think he's going to let them dick around anymore. And he claims he's going to order a mandatory after this fight. Yeah, we'll see. I just think Linares has far too many tools, and Gesta is just, even at 30 with his record, given how relatively inactive he's been, I just think he will do his best, but I don't think he has a whole lot to offer. But hey, we'll get to see Linares again, so that's all right.
Speed, hand and foot.
Absolutely.
Speed.
It's speed,
Someone who fights at a high
skill.
level of skill. That's going to be the difference in this fight. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna chime in with pretty much that exact sentiment. It's just he's just way too fast for Gesta. Gesta, like Gail alluded to, he lost to Miguel Vasquez, who's nowhere near as fast as Linares, but is technically at the time he was just as skilled. And he had a draw against Carlos Molina of Amir Khan and Adrian Broner fame. And to me, that's about the type of fighter that he is. He's the type of fighter that draws against Carlos Molina, which is to say that he's good. He's a good kind of a gatekeeper, journeyman, high, about the highest level that you can get of that ilk of fighter. But when it comes to fighting elite talents, elite, like true champions, guys that are bordering on, pound for pound level talents in terms of what they can bring to the table, he's just completely out of his territory, out of the atmosphere. Linares is on another level as compared to him. So I expect Linares to just look brilliant in this fight and just show people all kinds of different punches at crazy angles, like he's known to do against guys that really can't push him to the absolute limit.
Yeah, he has a way when he can really embarrass guys. Continue on, Bo.
No, I was just gonna say, Gail got a thing for these pretty boy Latinos, man. I don't know what it is, man. She has a a fixation.
Hell, man, I'm in San Diego. I could throw a rock and hit the border. Come on. I mean, what are we talking about? There's
you guys are. Go ahead, Gail. What'd you say?
And and you all know my affinity for the smaller weight classes, which is true of a lot of the connoisseurs among the panel here. So, I've got all that talent out there. What can I say? I mean, the funny thing is Gesta trains, blocks away from me, and basically in the shadow of the Miramar Marine Corps Air Base over here. And he's just a likable guy, but damn, Linares is just going to take him out. And it's funny, Linares, of all of the, Latino fighters, remember, he's, out of Venezuela, but he's essentially based in Japan. He lives in Tokyo.
How dope was it? He was answering questions in Japanese today.
He speaks fluent Japanese. It's crazy talent. Yeah, just amazing. But, there's somebody who went to where the action was. He was smart enough to get himself over there. It completely resurrected his career. It's just amazing. Yeah, Linares will get a chance to have some fun on Saturday. I'm sorry, at the expense.
Linares was supposed to dominate Luke Campbell. We saw how that went. Look, man, fuck Jorge Linares, man. He's a punk ass. Fuck this dude. I don't care about him. The hell with him. No.
Actually, Bo,
you could say. Go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead.
I'm about to say that, Bo. You actually brought up the point I was about to make. This should be a cakewalk for Linares. This should be a cakewalk, but in many ways, Luke Campbell was supposed to be a cakewalk for him. So, and Luke Campbell proved to be a much tougher opponent than
this guy was. Luke Campbell?
No. But I'm not saying that the skill wise. I'm saying I just hope Linares doesn't lower his expectations.
Luke Campbell, man. He carried him, man. He didn't want to stop Luke Campbell. He carried him. I know Linares. Linares is a bad boy. Yeah, I've been following him from Japan, and he's also got. He carried him, Daniel. He really did. He didn't want to stop him because he's UK value. If he knocks out Luke, Eddie ain't gonna bring him back. So this got him over here beating up on UK bums. Linares is just chilling. Linares is cool. That girl said he gonna knock that dude out quick and go about his business. But with Luke, he said, I don't want to ruin this guy. Linares wasn't really trying to hurt Luke, man. Come on, Daniel. So I don't expect Linares to struggle. But Daniel, if you think otherwise, then I ain't gonna argue you. But Linares is a badass, man. You know what I mean? He could put hands. You saw what he did over there to Mitchell. You know what I mean? You see when you really get on his nerves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he done to the Iron Terry. You see what he did to Iron Terry as well.
Terry, the second qualified, that beautiful punch, temple punch.
Yeah. Linares is about. If you get on his nerves, Linares is cool. He's making money. He don't want to beat up on the UK audience. So it's like, I like the UK. I like coming over here. If I stop Luke Campbell, it doesn't look good. And talk about Luke Campbell, when's the last time he fought since that beating? You know what I'm saying? So, he ain't, you know what I'm saying? He ain't recovered still, so that's just my take.
I'll not give it that, but the main thing about it is I just hope he doesn't just lower expectations and doesn't do what he's supposed to do in this case.
He's learned his lessons from his earlier days at 30 and 35.
I just hope so. I really hope so, Mike.
When he took the foot off the gas, he's older now. He's more mature as a fighter and as a human being. I don't see that as a problem.
Because I don't want any derailments caused by him when it comes to him fighting Mikey. Mikey causes in his own derailments as it is. And if it's not going to be Mikey, Robert Easter, you open your mouth. So get to the negotiating table pretty soon because the time for some unification is happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, Jacob, I didn't get your thoughts on this fight.
Yeah, I think Linares is going to kill this guy. I've seen him fight a couple times.
Will you be in attendance?
No, I'm actually. I said it before, I think in a previous show. I'm actually going to Vegas this weekend for my birthday, and I was looking for a weekend in Vegas to get to go see a fight over there, and I had already booked everything, and then of course they announced this card, so I was like, what the fuck? So, but so yeah, I won't be in attendance, but I would have been if I was in town. Yeah, I actually thought when I saw him the first time the second time at the StubHub, he fought this guy Mendoza, and I actually thought he lost that fight. But he was given the decision. I saw him at the Forum on the Burchelt Mira undercard too, and then I'd seen him like a while back when he fought at Carson before too, when it was the Home Depot Center. But he might be a nice guy and everything. I just don't think that he has the skill set to compete with the Linares. Linares should really mop the floor with them. It should get the stoppage. Linares has too many skills, too much speed. From what I remember from Gesta is that he kind of waits to throw punches and he doesn't counter very well. So I just think it's going to be – this is kind of like a showcase fight for Linares, because he didn't get that Garcia fight that he wanted. They're just kind of like, well, let's keep him busy. Let's see if we can, get another fight with Garcia sometime down the line or maybe another top opponent.
Last fight we're going to talk about before we shut things down. Oleksandr Usyk, fighting Mairis Briedis in Latvia. WBO, WBC Cruiserweight unification bout, part of the World Boxing Super Series, the semifinals. I'll go to you first, Bo. You've been paying close attention to this tournament. Your thoughts on this fight?
You know what? I like this fight. I really do like this fight. Mairis Briedis, it could be me. He didn't, in the Mike Perez fight, he didn't really impress me like I thought he should have. It's a lot more I thought he could have done. And then, Oleksandr Usyk, we all know he's, come from their school, Papinchenko, former trainer with James Ali Bashir. He shows the athleticism, the footwork, the movement. And the thing about Mairis Briedis is that Mairis Briedis is such one of those fighters that he's a stubborn fighter. What I mean by that is he'll fight a particular way regardless of whatever you're doing and keep doing that throughout the entire fight. So very interesting fight. Definitely like it. I think Usyk wins this fight. I just think Usyk has too much offense. Briedis is a hard puncher, so it'd be interesting if he can land a hard punch, if Usyk can take it. Usyk can, I think when he fought, I think it was a guy named Hunter. He fought a cat named Hunter. He did sort of
Michael Hunter.
sort of get right. Yeah, it was Hunter. Yeah, he did sort of let himself get into sort of like a standing trade type of position. So if Briedis can get Usyk to be stationary to trade with him like he did Hunter, it could be a bit of a problem. But I got Usyk winning this fight. I think Usyk's going to give Mairis Briedis a loss. Briedis a loss. Good fight, but y'all already know who my guy is to win this fight. I don't even think I even need to say it, do I? If I got to tell y'all
Nope,
who I think
nope.
wins this tournament,
You
y'all
don't
got
need to say.
problems.
You don't need to say. You don't need to say. We already know. We already know. Mr. Torticos, going to you, EJ Boxing Live. Your thoughts on the semifinal?
It's a good fight, man. It's a good fight. I think the tournament was set up to showcase Usyk. To me, Usyk should win fairly. I don't like the way Briedis fought Perez. You know what I mean? Too much holding. Usyk ain't gonna allow that. Usyk gonna put a beating on him. Usyk should win the tournament. But like Bo said, I'm interested in the Cuban because the Cuban was a surprise for everyone to even get that far. But Usyk should win that fight. It's a shame Mr. Bashir, who actually cultivated him from the start of his pro career, is not around to get these $1 million paydays that he's Usyk's receiving right now. Even though I think they still stay in touch at some point. Mr. Bashir's in South Africa. Because it's a shame that they part ways, but it is what it is. He should win the fight very comfortably, and I expect him to see him in the finals. So I'll go Usyk.
Now to TV. Your thoughts?
Funny enough, even though it's an intriguing matchup from like an on-paper perspective, I don't think it's going to be a very good fight. I just think that Usyk is too agile, and he's going to use that to his advantage and be more defensive in this fight against Briedis. And he's just going to outpoint him just too clearly. Briedis will land a couple of good shots here and there. He'll probably, expose a couple of the weaknesses that Usyk has, because when Usyk is trying to do that kind of tricky, I'm being real fancy and I'm doing this and I'm doing that other fighters don't typically do in the ring, that type of stuff that Lomachenko does, he doesn't do it as good as Lomachenko does it. He looks a little bit awkward as he does it. So I think Briedis will probably nail him with a couple of right hands here and there. But the thing is, like Bo alluded to, and like he had done against Mike Perez and others of his past fights as well, he just kind of fights at the same tempo regardless of what his opponent's doing. And so even though I think Usyk is going to be ahead of him the entire way, I don't think Briedis is going to really be able to do very much to close the distance in terms of the scoring gap either. He'll land a couple of good shots here and there, but ultimately I think that Usyk is really just too defensively good for him, and he'll make use of that in such a way that it winds up being a bit of I think it's going to wind up being kind of a dull decision win for Usyk. I don't think it's going to be like this light on fire fight. If Briedis is able to make his power work for him a little bit more, it can turn into it, but I just don't see it happening.
Jacob?
I got to go with Usyk here, but I hope it's a competitive, and I hope Briedis gives him a good fight. Usyk, for all the skills that he has, he can sometimes get a little like lackadaisical. Like he kind of doesn't, I feel like he could do more, and he kind of, I don't know, he's a little maybe too cautious sometimes. So I don't know, maybe if he makes a mistake and Briedis can capitalize on it, and maybe hurt him, maybe we can see a different fight. But the smart money's on Usyk, and so we'll see what happens.
Gail?
Nothing much to add. I think Briedis will try to make it as competitive as he can, but Usyk is, he is relentless. He's a machine. He's big even for a cruiserweight. And we're all waiting for the final. We know we're all salivating for that, and that will be a very competitive fight. Due credit to Richard Schaefer for putting together this series. It's been tremendous all the way through. There really hasn't been a weak link in the entire series, and I hope there will be more to come once this one is completed.
And finally, Daniel.
When it comes to Briedis, I do agree. He does fight at the same tempo throughout, but he does have a little bit of pop in that hand. And like I said, it's this tournament, particularly the cruiserweight, didn't have a bad fight in it. And this is probably a good fight because Usyk really hasn't been tested like from a power standpoint when it comes to the chin work. He's been tested as far as frustration, as far as a little bit of tempo, or when he does try to get cute. But Briedis is probably going to test him with that right hand a bit. But I do believe Usyk's probably going to pull it out. He has too many tools. He has too good footwork, too good head movement. And I just hope it'll be a good competitive fight because obviously to me, like I said, I'm salivating over the final because it's Usyk versus either Gassiev or Dorticos. And either one of those is going to be beautiful.
It's Usyk versus Dorticos in the finals, man. Get it right.
Dude, I know you love your Cubanos, but Gassiev nearly killed a man, so
did Kovalov and Ward kicked his ass. Usyk versus Dorticos. Get it right.
Man, look, Dortico damn near killed his last opponent. You saw how his eyes were bouncing in his head after he got knocked down.
that was just beautiful. Like you just saw him yelling as he was throwing the right hand.
For me, this will be the last comment before we I'll go around the panel and ask where folks can follow you whenever. Only real chance I give Briedis is a puncher's chance. I think to point, Usyk is not just skill wise, but just provides too much movement. My fear is that this bout could be mundane, quite tedious. But at the end of the day, I'm giving Usyk the win and win comfortably, 8-4, 9-3 in rounds. I just don't see a scenario outside of a big punch where Briedis can win, and we're gonna start to shut the show down on that note. Going around the panel here, I begin the show starting with ladies first. I'm gonna end the show starting with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News, for folks who want to talk the sweet science, talk Dancing with the Stars, talk environmental issues. Let the folks know where they can find you.
First of all, I want to compliment the huge panel. We had everybody in tonight. Great show, very enlightening. Enjoyed just strictly from a fan standpoint. Enjoyed it tremendously tonight. Thank you to everybody. You can find me on Communities Digital News, COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I News.com, comdiginews.com.
Before I go on, I want to thank everybody in the chat room who was on the show tonight. K Izzle25, aka Miss Vicious Fox on Twitter. Sean, K Izzle, my homegirl. Also my homegirl, Jade from Bad Culture TV. Who else was in here tonight? I see Scorsese, he was in the chat. Quantum was in the chat. Give a shout out to him. RKO, give a shout out to him. Thank everybody for being in the chat, for participating, for the comments and the questions. It was quite lively in the chat, just like it was on the show. Join us all the way live from the UK. Was probably 5-6 in the morning right now. My UK broham, EJ Boxing Live, for folks who want to talk boxing, for folks who want to talk basketball. Let the folks know where they can find you and give some information. I know you're a coach out there. You work the pads with the youngsters out there in the UK. Let them know where to hit you up.
Yeah, I just want to say before I comment, like, obviously, girls' little speech woke me up good and proper, boy. I was gonna say Happy New Year. It was a good speech. She woke me up, man. Hey, happy because I was dropping off over you, like, you know, the timing. Happy New Year to the panel because it's the first time I talked to you guys for all this year. And yeah, man, like I do like coaching. I do some coaching in my gym, whatever. Obviously, if you ain't in the UK, you ain't gonna know where that is, by the way. But you know, they've got some pros coming out, so I'll be putting their content out on my channel. So you want to catch me on my channel, EJ Boxing Live on my channel, EJ Boxing Live. I've got active Instagram account and also Twitter. Same EJ Boxing Live on Twitter. Catch me there. Thanks very much for the panel. You just livened me up, man. Girl, man, that was a good speech. Michael as well. And for the whole panel, man, you definitely livened me up, man. Daniel, all of you, Jacob, you know what I mean? Low Place, now, you know what I'm saying? Like Bo, Bo, man, yeah, me and Bo always talk all the time, man. Hey, listen, it's good to everyone over there. What a great start to 2018 and a great card. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
I just want to speak up on EJ's behalf. You folks don't know how rough it is to give your best performance in the middle of the night, for God's sakes. You know, you need to check out EJ at his absolute peak of perfection on his YouTube channel. That's where he really lets it rip. You know, he is fighting with one hand behind his back when he joins us at this hour.
Jacob knows. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us on the show, brother. Now to TV. It's been a while since you've been on Pound for Pound Boxing Report. For those who want to talk to Sweet Science or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, you know, I got a Twitter. You know, it's not particularly active. My YouTube is a bit more active. You know, you can just search at Nauta Bucks on Twitter or on YouTube, just NAOTA Nauta, and you'll be able to find me. Or you could just look up Ollie Ramey, and I'm probably the first video that pops up for that dude. for reasons that I'm not entirely sure of, but I think that's very appropriate given the type of fighter that guy was. But yeah, you know, I'm just looking forward to these fights. I think that the Kiram versus Matthysse one is really the most intriguing one of the weekend, and hopefully it leads on to bigger and better things, especially as to what we were speaking about earlier, considering the fact that the winner of this will be an eventual mandatory if the WBA ever decides to actually follow through with their one title per weight class policy, and the winner might be a future opponent for Keith Thurman. I think that's very intriguing in its own right. So hopefully it's a good one.
I want to thank Scorsese for joining us on the show. If you want to check him out, you can follow him on YouTube. His page, low place hashtag MLPF. You want to check him out on Twitter, and it's a damn shame I know his Twitter better than he does. Step it up, bro. Step it up. You can check him out on Twitter at MyLowPlace, at MYLOWPLACE. Thank him for joining us on the show. The homie, both from Truth and Facts. For folks who want to talk to Sweet Science, for those who want to follow the adventures of you and your daughter, especially, she's hilarious. I keep telling y'all a web series in waiting. For those who want to check you out in terms of your apps, you develop apps now. You got them on iTunes and whatnot, as well as music. I've played some music from you earlier to open and close the show. Let the people know where they can hit you up.
Man, first I just want to thank everybody for being here. You know, a good panel. I always like being here, and as always, you know, I come in, I raise the level of intelligence, I raise the level of prettiness, and you know, I raise the level. I raise the level of Latino-ness. I just raise the level of everything. So I just you know, glad I come in. Gail probably was sweating, so Gail, go ahead, you know, wipe the sweat from your forehead from perspiring, because I know, you know, I'm Jorge Linares ain't got shit on me, Gail.
Oh my God! Yeah, you raise blood pressure. I'll tell you that.
I'm the Luis Ortiz of this panel, but
So wait a minute. We don't drug test here. We don't.
Exactly.
So you mean you're about 58?
Thank God.
So you mean you're about 58, huh?
Right. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. But
So
yeah,
you about 58, huh?
58. I tell you what. This 15-year-old eating machine I got in this house now. Yeah, I feel like it.
Proceed, brother. Proceed.
Okay. Yeah, you can find me, of course, Truth and Facts About Boxing, and you know, with Three Kings, and you know, I'm all part of the movement. So shout out to everybody out there. You can also catch me on Twitter at Truth_FactBox1. Same thing, Instagram, Truth_FactBox1. We got some new skits that be coming. My son, who is home now, who is eating me out of house and home. Well, I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking about it. I love you, but you know, you got to get the hell out. Fun for him.
Boys, man, teenage boys, they do that, brother.
Man, you know what? Funny story is, he's 15 and he's doing things that making me look like my mom. And I'm looking in the mirror at myself like my mom. Like when you wear a skull cap in the house, because you don't want nobody to see your head because you want a haircut, but yet you can't wear it at school. I'm trying to figure out where that logic is coming from, bro. Okay. So we got
boys,
some
man. Boys.
Yeah, so we got some skits coming with him. So you'll be seeing those soon. Some new games coming up, and I'm gonna be working on some more music. But man, I like it's been a long time. I'm just glad everybody was here. Jacob, who always keeps me honest, even when one of my fellow Cubans win, but they didn't deserve to win. And of course, Daniel, I got a chance to talk to him. It's good to see Nalta back on here, and Gail for just her unbiased, perfect writing and helping me out with my writing. I definitely appreciate that. And Mike, for coming on my show sometime and helping out. Just man, thank you for everybody, man. Great. I appreciate all you guys.
No problem, brother. You know where it is. You know where it is. Jacob from Jab Hook. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk movies and the movie reel, let the people know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show as always, Mike. To all those people listening, or if you got friends that are into boxing, this is, to me, it's a great podcast. To second the Sediment said earlier, the panel's always respectful and knowledgeable, and I think Bo said it before. He learns something every time when he's on here, and I really like that. I think it's a really good show, and so support it. Go on iTunes and or whatever platform you listen to it on, rate it, write a review, and help Mike out. He's putting out good content, and he's got good people on here. But I could be found at Twitter at JRATM23. And you want to talk boxing and movies. And just one more plug: Gus, who normally joins the show, he just started his YouTube channel. He released a couple of videos of these past fights, so check him out. Corruption in Boxing. He's real. I really like Gus.
Indeed.
He knows his stuff, and we might not always agree, but I respect him because he comes with a lot of knowledge. So check him out on YouTube.
And last but certainly not least, Daniel from the Inscriber, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat, or for those who want to check you out, clap back at conservatives who get out of pocket on Twitter. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. Like I said, I'm always here at the Pound for Pound panel. I do my own show with the good folks at FortBoxNews.com, Joe and Francis. By the way, shout out to them. They are down with the flu at the moment. That's why we didn't have a show last week. Yeah, Chicago winters.
Soon, Francis and Joe, feel better soon.
Yeah, feel better soon. And obviously, like I said, I'm going to, parrot Jacob here, put a review, do what you need to do to put this show up, and as we always taught the best thing. And shout out to Zeb Judah, who's actually fighting on Saturday.
That is right.
What?
I forgot about that. Yes, he is fighting. I can't remember the opponent, but I saw something about that earlier. Yeah, Jacob, he is fighting.
Jeez.
Nurse during the daytime and still a fighter at night. So there you go. As Daniel and Jacob alluded to, if you like what you've heard this far, click that like button, subscribe, leave a review on Twitter, 5-star review I will read on the show. Check us out on SoundCloud. Click that like button and leave a commentary there as well. If you want to check me out talking boxing or music or even fitness, you can check me personally out on Twitter. You know what it is, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said, to begin the show, if you want to check out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the place to go to. P4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the link. You check the rather page. You can check out the links for the channels and pages on YouTube, Facebook, G+, Twitter, Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to the show on SoundCloud, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, Player FM, for the folks in the UK, Google Play Music, as well as Mixcloud. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Matthysse, Kiram, of Linares, and Gesta, excuse me, of Usyk and Briedis, as well as a preview of Zerto Ramirez, who's going to be fighting Habib Ahmed. Jerwin Ankanya's a good-looking junior bantamweight that's not being talked about enough. He's going to defend his belts against Israel Gonzalez. Those fights will take place February 3rd, Corpus Christi, Texas, on ESPN. Again, I want to thank everybody in the chat, the homegirls, Mrs. Fox, Jay from Back Culture, Sean, Bo and Scorsese, they was in the chat as well. Quantum, and anybody I missed, I apologize. I want to thank Gail from Community Digital News here, Bo from Truth and Facts, the homie EJ Boxing Live, Scorsese, now to Jacob, Daniel. I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 196 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.